share here and hope everyone can see it. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Anyway, I'm Phil Lardner. I'll do a little introduction or a bio about myself in a couple pages. Let's see here. Gonna go here. But I just want to get to today's agenda. So I try to make a fun kind of theme to this and not make it very heavy in math. I think that scares a lot of people. Rob and I were talking about before. It's like my wife is a nurse and she can't figure out what I've done in 36 years of marriage. So I thought I'd make it kind of topical for it and bring it down to more of a non-statistical level, although it uses analytics. So trying to make it easy for small or medium-sized businesses. A lot of my background is with big businesses, especially in consumer products. And that's kind of my focus. I retired about 2 years ago and I just started this kind of consultancy to keep busy and to keep things focused. So I've been a member of the chamber for about a year now. I think Amy and Robin orientated me about last August. I think that was when we first met. So anyway, some of my friends today, when they said Brad Pitt, I was just using Brad Pitt to get people to attend this and not run away from the math topic. But if anyone's familiar with that movie, I'm sure you are. It was based on a book by Michael Lewis in the early 90s, excuse me, in early 2000s about the Oakland Athletics, how they use statistics to gain a competitive advantage in an unfair game. They were the lowest, they had the lowest payroll in the league, but they continually were able to stay ahead of the game. Now everyone in baseball or all sports have kind of copied the use of higher analytics and really taken it to a different level. But at that time, it was kind of breakthrough and revolutionary, and it kind of went against a lot of the institutional thinking of people who had played the game. So that was the purpose of the topic. And we're going to keep focused on that. I'm going to keep the math simple, hopefully. And if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt or use the chat. Maybe a bit lecturing. A little bit about me. So Dog Green Beach. People have asked me if this is like a dog training area or company or what's going on with this name. If you're familiar with World War II, it was Omaha Beach, is where it landed. That was where my father, who's passed away, was a veteran and landed. So it was a little bit of strategic, a little bit of tactical to be successful and get up on the bridgehead and establish that. It's also kind of fun. I live here on Riverside, so we do have a beach out here or a boat area, but it's really the kind of the focus of it, and it's kind of a remembrance of him. People asked, why did you have that name? It's a little history there. I worked my entire career in applied marketing science, so even when it wasn't popular, so it was kind of a pioneer measuring marketing mix. So that's the 4 Ps of marketing: price, promotion, place, and advertising and pricing and all that. So over 40 years, as I said, all with fast-moving consumer companies, so big multinational companies, global companies. I was at the Kraft. I was the head of marketing analytics there and ConAgra. So that was some of my biggest ones. Most recently, before I retired, was I headed up the net revenue management group at Clorox in the middle of COVID. So that was interesting. We really focus on measuring the entire marketing mix. So everything that you would spend on marketing with a focus on ROI. So it's about driving profits. So in this case, we're about accountability. So especially with digital nowadays, everything's a number, so it can be measured. So every dollar is measurable today, where maybe it wasn't 10 years ago or 5 years ago. Talked about that. This is my contact information. So I wanted to start out today because there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of, especially with digital, a lot of ways to measure your business. So on the left here, there's return on marketing objectives. This is a focus. This is things that you buy. So I buy an audience. I place an ad in Facebook and I get clicks and engagement. Those are what we call return on marketing objectives. So this is something that we talk about cause and effect. We're going to be talking more about effect today. So the earning of that. So just because you got clicks doesn't mean that you got an incremental sale from that. And that's really going to be the focus on how to measure that today. More on return on marketing objectives. This is also important. Today's, you hear a lot of this if you especially work with an ad agency, performance, media, analytics. So looking at, especially, let's say, we have a cable company on here or internet company on here. They have a lot of data available and people can get confused on all these metrics, but they also lead to something. They lead to a purchase. They lead to a profit. So that's what we're trying to focus on today, but I just wanted to lay out what's the difference in terms of what we're talking about. Return on marketing objectives are important. Am I driving brand awareness? Am I driving someone, increasing buyers? Am I increasing buy rate? So buy rate is people buy more. So that's also important. But what I'm talking about today is going to be return on profit. So I spend an extra dollar. I want to get an extra dollar in terms of profit in return. And that's kind of the focus today. There's other returns of marketing investment, long-term value that's important for cable internet, for example, or insurance. When we talk about the telecoms, another one where that's important. They're also driving brand health or value. That's also important because there's a financial number tied to that. And we won't get into that today, but there is some people focus on that in terms of outside organizations or associations. Put that on your balance sheet. If you look at the amount of assets that companies had in the 50s and 60s, a lot of it was hard assets, plants, factories, et cetera. Today, like Facebook, they don't really own anything. They own some kind of service. So a way to value that as an asset. And then there's also goodwill. Goodwill is, the ability to sell your company for 3 or 4 times what the earnings are, because you build up goodwill, you have a strong brand, and there's a long-term future in it. That's also a financial measurement, but we're not really going to be focused on that today. Is that helpful for folks, or is that? So today, Moneyball is about getting things down to one number. Using the stats the way we read them, we find value, in this case, players, that no one else can see. So for them, their metric was on base percentage. So the ability to get on base, not a batting average, not an ERA or something like that. It's about the more people you get on base, the more chance you have to score and the more chance you have to win. So that's what they really focused on. And they found value in people who were ignored by the traditional scouts in the business. They found value in lower paid players who then resurrected their career with them because they were focused on that. Similarly with brand growth here, this is how we're mathematically going to define ROI. So the incremental net profit. So incremental sales, is something that may be a little difficult to explain here, but it's profit you wouldn't have gotten if you didn't spend money. So marketing money against it. So if I spend, to get a GRP or an audience or a click, this is something that you're going to drive extra. So you want people to purchase an extra item, get more visits, get more subscribers to your service, etc. So these are incremental, and there's ways to measure that I'll get into that aren't too egg-heady. And then the investment. What was the incremental investment for that? And just multiply by 100, you get 1%. So this is how we're going to mathematically measure this today and talk about it. And I have some examples, made up examples for chamber members I'm going to get into. This is the first one. So this is my hypothetical restaurant. So Green Street Bar and Grill. This is their weekly sales in dollars, charted out by weeks, and the amount of money that they take in. So this is dollars that they take in. So just charting it out, you can see that each week is worth a different value. There's some weeks, especially in the winter or late fall, that really are under average. And that's what that dotted line is, kind of the moving average. And that green line in the middle, which you may or may not see on this projection, is kind of the average week. So it's about $8,600 per week in revenue. So the question is, when should I promote? Where should I spend my marketing dollars? I have a limited budget, a small business, and really, what should I focus on? That becomes pretty clear when you just chart this out by week. Thanksgiving, not so good. Even Christmas, maybe you have a bump because people are out shopping, but and then in January, people aren't out, there's snow and whatnot. But then they come out for Valentine's Day or St. Patrick's Day. So that's obviously the biggest weeks of the year, and almost 1.3 times higher. So your chances or probability of being successful with that marketing dollar are much higher. The dollar that you spend is probably about the same any week, whether it's a high week or a low week, to bring a new audience into your bar or restaurant in this case. But the return automatically is 1.3 higher because people are out. They're more open to that. Same with Memorial Day and the summer start. Maybe if you get Fiesta days, you have a little drop off from those peaks because during the July period, because of Fiesta days, where people start going on vacation, and then they return, and it's Labor Day and back to school, and people are out and about, and there's another bump. So if we're going to do events, in this example, certainly number one is in Valentine's Day and St. Patrick's Day. Number two is Memorial Day. Number three is Labor Day. But the other ones, maybe not so much. We have different events maybe that we try to do, whether it's a band to try to get people or loyal customers to come more often. But really, you're going to drive the most profit just, from the probability standpoint in these three drive periods. So this is a simple way to look at it, just to chart it out in Excel or something that you can say, hey, this is how my business flows. There's a natural seasonality to it, and that's how I should prioritize my marketing dollars. Number two is price. So this is Amanda's barbershop. In this example, inflation is causing price pressure on their business. What does it all mean, and how does my business stay competitive? Rents are going up, maybe prices of products are going up. So I need to price in this inflationary period. So price elasticity is simple as this people start to wig out about pricing, because when you price, you're going to lose customers just by definition mathematically. So it's just simply the percent change. So that's what that little triangle is change in quantity demanded. So in this case, the number of visits, and then over the percent change in price. So the price increase. So in this case, they have 10,000 annual visits. So the last price increase was 5% for them in 2022, where visits declined 2.5%. So just the 2.5 over 5 in this case gives you a price elasticity of negative 0.5. The current revenue for their business is 200,000. Current profit, let's say 40%, I just assume is $80,000. The profit per haircut is $8. And I said now that because of the past history, we know the price elasticity. We know the change of business back then. We know the price change. We can see the effect. So they're proposing a 10% price increase, so bring it up to $22. So with a price elasticity of negative 0.5, Amanda will lose 5% of his $10,000 visits, or 500 visits, due to the increased price, leaving 9,500 visits. So the net annual revenue, though, because we're increasing the price on that 95% of the business that stayed, will jump to 209,000. Profit will increase to 83,000, so 3,600 if margin stays at 40%. Profit, it may or may not, so it's just the assumption. The profit per cut increases that with that 10%. So you're getting a lot more money from those who stayed with your business, but you lost 500 people, or 500 visits. It could be multiple visits. So that's when to improve. So this is positive. You're going to get more profit to help pay for those rising costs. Unfortunately, you're going to lose some people. So is there something else that we can do on pricing? So just a pure price increase, that's good. It's going to be more profit, but you're going to be concerned because you lost a fair amount of people. So is there another way to focus on this? So this is a kind of a industry term, but you see this all the time if you go grocery shopping. It's called price pack architecture. So this is doing different sizes, or some kind of Goldilocks strategy of good, better, best. It may be different service levels, There's a premium level. There's a kind of like gold, silver, bronze that people try to do. This also gets a bad rap. You hear a lot about greedflation. So people you see this a lot in snacks. People increase the price. They have to take a price increase, and what they do is take out a couple ounces of chips or something from it. You see this a lot, and they puff the bag with gas and then or some kind of gas to make it look full, and then people get mad because they're getting ripped off. But that's one way, they know they're going to lose some customers just because of the definition of price elasticity. But that's one way to, try to keep the price in play for like immediate consumption item or something like that. So you see this all the time. There's a lot of press on this. But this is what they're trying to accomplish and to institute a good, better, best. So in this case, what would it mean for Amanda? So Amanda had charged $20 for every haircut in the past. Now she has to raise the price. She's going to lose some. So in this case, Amanda may keep the $20 price for seniors or kids. So people with fixed income, for example, or limited income, to keep them within the franchise. For a basic haircut, that would be a good level. For $22, which is the price increase, they could be a custom cut with a beard trim, throw that in there. So then you get a better level. And then for $30, add kind of the good, better, best is some kind of wash with a custom cut and trim and maybe a hot towel. So you see this at Sports Clips or someone like that. They instituted this. This is their way of doing it. So good, better, best. So what would that mean? So we're kind of assuming here, but if you get 250 of those 500 people that you lost back, that's an extra $5,000 in revenue. If 20% of the visits are upgraded to better, so that's that would be 15,200 in extra revenue. Revenue would now, excuse me, but it'd be in best. That was a typo. Revenue would now be in 229,000, with profits from the new service almost all incremental as the costs are already covered. So we had that price increase before that covered the cost of her service. Profits would go from 83,600 to 103,800, or up 30% from before the price increase. And they would only lose 250 people instead of 500 people. And the profit per visit now would be 10,000 or $10.64. So this is a more complicated way of doing a price increase while still trying to retain your customers, your loyal customers who've been coming to you at that $20 price. So what does that mean now for ROI? So these two choices. Again, ROI is incremental net profit over investment. So the investment for this case would be for the straight price increase is $4,000 because that's the profit. Of those lost people would be $4,000. So those 500 people represent $4,000 in profit. Now you got an incremental 3,600. So even though it's profit positive by that $3,600, the ROI is only 90% because you had to spend $4,000 and losing those people to get that incremental profit. So even though, it's where it may get a little tricky here, but even though you had more profit and paid the bill and you kept up, it's also riskier. The marginal break even is just about even. It's not enough to really continue to grow your business in the long term. So this other choice with the Goldilocks, you get 23,800 in profit. The cost of that is cut in half because you retained 250 of those people, the seniors and the kids. And the return on profit is incredible. Warren Buffett would be extremely pleased with this, 1,190%. So it's a slam dunk investment and really not costing much at all in terms of offering those other services, because those are things that you typically offered for $20 anyway, but you segment it and keep it within focus. So this rule of threes, it's actually a mathematical rule of threes, is good, better, best, Goldilocks. Like consumers opt out versus you give them a choice before you fire them. You don't want to fire customers. That's not a good business model. Don't leave these loyal customers behind. They just may not be able to afford that price increase because they're getting it from all over. The biggest mistake, pricing to cover costs. You see this all the time. You look at the food business right now. They priced and priced and priced to cover inflation from COVID, coming out of COVID. And now you're seeing a retraction for that. There's a lot of deal backs and everything else because the consumers made options. I just saw something that consumers are skipping a meal every day because the cost of food is so high. So now you're seeing it swing back. But there's maybe a better way to do it, which is maybe this good, better, best, to do it more strategically and keep people within it, or protect a key item or key service that's a basic service. So this is one way where we can use ROI to give us, more positive outcomes with pricing, because pricing is never worked for a brand manager who thought pricing was good. But, at the end of the day, it's about profit. Don't make it a financial transaction. Consider the consumer and those people buying it because they have different needs. Don't just let a cost accountant come in and say, we're going to price everyone. And then that's typically what happens because organizations um, they're kind of restrained, I think, often in creativity around pricing. They just kind of run from it and let it be I was told to price. I didn't think it was a good idea. Well, that's not acceptable. So this is ways, significantly increase your profit as a small business. Amanda's is going to do a lot better by doing this. Won't lose as many customers with pricing because you're always going to lose customers with pricing for the most part, unless there's something unusual. But you added consumer news into it, you gave them some value for it, and you still didn't take their choice away, which was the basic haircut. Hopefully that's clear. Maybe a little pedantic, but I apologize. How do I test for the best local marketing vehicle? So in this case, we're spending marketing on advertising, marketing dollars on advertising. So there's two choices, and I try to take local prices for this. One is the digital billboard. So it's a 1/4 spot, which is it shows every 4 minutes. I didn't go for show it every minute because that's a premium, and a lot of small businesses couldn't afford that. I would run for 4 weeks. It would be seen 9,450 times, so the messages would be shown, and then the impressions of the drive-by is about a little over 46,000. The cost is $713. The CPM is about 1542. So cost per thousand is what that is, 1,000 people. The other choice, especially for local business, is direct mail. So in this case, 5,000 households with 1,250. So divide that by 4, mail it by week to kind of break it up so that not everyone's coming in the same week to do a meal deal. And you get some long-term value from that. That would cost 3,000, including the purchase of the names and addresses, the printing, and the bulk postage. It's an expensive cost per thousand because you're going very direct, but it's a better audience engagement versus someone just driving by that may not look at it unless there's a stop sign or a stoplight. So you're going directly. If you assume a 0.5% response rate, so again, that's incremental sales that you wouldn't have gotten. The $5 coupon would add about it would go with a coupon. So the $5 coupon, so if that response rate would be about $1,250 in cost that you're discounting. So you need to consider that coupon cost, the subsidization of that purchase. Let's say if it's at Green Street Bar and Grill. The total program cost then is the cost of working, the 3,000, plus the cost of subsidization, the 1,250, so 4,250. So much higher cost versus the 713. But what are the results? So there's the quality of engagement is going to be higher with the direct mail than the drive-by, the billboard. They may have different purposes. On the left, we're just trying to, if it's a coffee spot or something, it may make sense. May not. The direct mail may make more sense for a restaurant because there's a higher ticket to that in terms of people coming and buying a meal. So these are just two examples with different costs per thousand. So I thought this would be interesting. If you go back to our previous charts, so it was $8,600 sales per week is kind of the average. So that's kind of your baseline. The average weekly dollar sales would, in this case, rose 10% for direct mail. So this is incremental sales over that 8,600. So we got a lot more revenue from that. It brought people in. And a $1 for the digital billboard execution and 4 weeks after. So both of these are about a 2-month period because that's how marketing works. They don't work immediately always. They work sometime in the future, especially in advertising. So the digital billboard brought in a profit, and again, incremental profit. So we got to take whatever the sales were and discounted by our rate. So 40% is what we assume is 276 over the cost. That's a 39% return. Again, much cheaper. The impressions are not as effective in driving incremental sales, however, because it's just not as good as income for in this case. Direct mail, while more costly, also had a higher incremental profit, a 65% return. So this was a very good response rate. I mean, just the long-term effect of marketing, we always said is 1.5. So the double that 65% would be a longer term. This is a short-term return, so just those 8 weeks, not the long-term effect of advertising. So you look at ways to reduce costs here. Maybe go to the village planner where you're sharing costs with other people. The mailing cost is high here, the placement costs and everything else to drive down the cost, and that will drive up the effect of the profit as well. So you can get closer to a positive payback on that in terms of profit and really focus on that. So you have two choices here. Both may be effective at some of those ROMO goals, but others are not as effective in terms of returning marketing. Hopefully I haven't lost people. The last example here is a chamber example. So cause marketing, I know we have some NGO in here, but also, you have different goals in terms of supporting like Fiesta Days or the Wine. I supported the Wine Walk Bag sponsorship. There's obviously goodwill, which is also adds to your brand value and image. We talked about that earlier, but it's also an awareness generator for your business as well. Certainly makes sense for a lot of reasons. Like I said, the goodwill, community and sharing ideas. There's long term. You guys are going to share with me. I'm sharing with you. There's a lot of positive about networking. But I'm just looking at the marketing spend in this example and say, is this a good idea? So for Fiesta Days, the car show. So there's a 200,000 exclusive sponsorship, I think that was offered. The cost per thousand based on the people attending that would be great, very cheap, and also very focused because these are people interested in cars already. A dealer Corvette profit, I looked up, is about $7,500 per car. If someone buy a Corvette, a nice car, and this is about a car show. So all I got to do is sell one more car, and their ROI is 375%. That's pretty incredible. That's a great return. Then maybe, Robin, you need to up your ad rates on this, but it just shows you an example of why a car dealer would want to sponsor that. You have captive buyers, people who are interested in cars, interested in buying cars, and they're all focused in one place. And the dealer profit for cars, especially for a high performance car, is extremely high. So just selling one car, if they sell two cars, it's going to be incredible. I sponsored the wine walk, so I think there's 4 or 5 people that were on that sponsorship. It cost $350, I think. The cost per thousand is about average, about $7 per the limited people attending. But from my point of view, first of all, I was giving back. But second of all, this could be people who are more focused on maybe work for consumer products company or more, someone who can make that decision. If anything, just getting my name out there. All I needed was 2 hours, 2 hours to make that a break even of someone using my time when I charge per hour, for example. If I get one engagement, so most of my engagement are 6 months long or 4 months long. If I just get 1 week, it's a 200%, 2000% ROI. So this is how I thought about when I signed up, and then this is how maybe that car dealer would think about it from Fiesta Days. So there's a community focus on this, but there's also a business focus. And this is how I took it. As probably the only person that did this, but this is how you should be measuring your business when you do this as well. So we both got targeted audience that fit our needs, but we had different goals. I would never sponsor a car show, for example. It's not my business. It's not who I do business with. It doesn't make any sense. And I don't know if a car dealer would sponsor a wine walk, especially with DUI or something like that. They may not want to be associated with that. Again, both products have potential in terms of returning an ROI and the targeted audience. The hurdle for MROI for each is low, really, considering what we make in terms of the profitability. It may not be for someone else. It depends on your business model. Buying an audience is important, as is their response. So the getting the cost down also affects your ROI. It's not just about selling more. It's also about being focused on how you spend your marketing. In this case, Castle likely doesn't want to sponsor one. We talked about that, but both are to build brand awareness, balance sheet, and community goodwill. Again, those are financial measurements that can be incorporated. So that's my examples. I know we have some more. I can share some more. I have a series of principles and best practices from my clients that I was going to share. It's based on marketing science. So if anyone doesn't have any questions, I can move on to that. Okay, I'll move on. Hopefully I haven't lost folks for my egghead presentation.
You haven't
This has
lost
been
anybody.
great, Phil. Keep
Okay.
keep going. This is great.
So marketing science, so this is what I do, is based on this concept, the marketing concept of a leaky bucket. So where customers come and go, they're not loyal. I'll show on the next page, like 40 to 60% of your customers leave in a year and you got to get replaced. So if you're a cost accountant, they always want to go, what's the, impact of marketing? Why are you spending so much money? And this is why, we're always trying to get people to come into and buy our brands. For food, it's going to be much higher because there's competition, there's private label, and whatnot. But a lot of national competitive brands, and this is on deal. I always say Coke and Pepsi, just, if you go to Meijer and you like Coke, just wait a week because it'll be on sale next week because this is Pepsi's week. And people are trained to buy in deal, but you need to have the marketing, specifically advertising, to fill that leaky bucket. If you're just promoting on price, people aren't as loyal. They're just, okay, it's too expensive. I'm going to buy this other choice. If people are buying on your brand and image and advertising, you're offering consumer benefits, that leaky bucket will start to plug. So if you keep this concept in mind, because it's a tough year, we got to cut our budgets. It just never works. It starts, we call it a death cycle. When you start cutting advertising and the long-term effect of advertising, brands start to die. And I'll go into it on the next page. So this is the focus of this. It's a simple kind of example, but it's something that's taught in every marketing book. So it's really important to really focus on bringing in new customers because they're the ones that are most profitable. This was Ehrenberg Bass Institute, which is the University of South Australia. They're really focused on this. So the Bass curve is this famous statistical model. I don't know if you've heard of it. I doubt it. I'm probably the only one that's heard of it. But it's really focused on this idea of growing your brand. So penetration is getting more people, and buy rate is having them buy more. So it's really hard to get people to buy more. They have a limited amount of dollars in their wallet. They're going to buy, the category how they see fit. To try to get them to buy more is just really hard. But to get more people like them is easier. So what they did is look a lot at brands across the world and said, those are that grew. So brands that grew versus brands that shrunk. What was it that was driving it? So in this case, in this study, they saw that penetration, so getting more people to buy your product, and grew brands. The brands were growing at a ratio of 3 to 1. So much, you're talking about probability on base percentage. With Moneyball, just getting more people on base, you have a better chance of being successful. And that's over buy rate. So trying to get people to buy more is really difficult. They're just going to buy kind of your category average because, they're limited by their incomes as well. but there's a lot more people like them out there that, or, your target audience. So really focusing on continually filling that leaky bucket, is really important. And similarly, those that they lost on penetration. The brands that were declining in share, had stopped advertising, stopped doing the things that are important about the brand and the image, and they started to wilt. So really focus on, the effects of advertising. And they looked at different tactics that, grew penetration. So price promotion, not really a penetration driver. It'll swap out brands, and people will buy a deal this week and not. It's not really incremental. They're just waiting for the deal. So you're subsidizing their purchase. But those that are new, really respond to advertising. A very effective way to do that. And that makes sense, right? That's everything we know is, the more we advertise, the more we interact with our customers or consumers, the more value there'll be. And then, you look at, we have some, I don't know if the insurance is on here, but we have internet. So if you look at internet or maybe even banking, I know we have some banking people on here, just getting that customer insurance, and then you bundle them, right? It's a great chance to, oh, you got home insurance, your boat insurance, car insurance, everything else. And it's, really important not to lose them. So when you look at brands that advertise a lot, like how many times can Affleck advertise, and why are they doing that? They're trying to attract a new audience, because once they get you, they know that the resistance is low to change, unless you get a big price increase in house insurance, for example. People start to shift then on buying, but they have you in there, so it's like a subscription. You've signed up for it. So you see a lot of people doing subscriptions now because that plugs the leaky bucket, but they're also advertising nonstop, it seems sometimes, especially if you're watching a sports program. Like how much, how many more people can they get? A lot. The answer is a lot, because they're filling that leaky bucket, and they're really focused on that. Versus you see a lot of food brands, it's just all about in store and getting a coupon or something. That's not really driving your customer base. You're just switching volume to people. So you really need to have a point of difference, to do that, and advertising is the way to do it. So this is really important. I think it's simple in terms of but in terms of hopefully explaining it, is like focus on getting more customers, because that fills that leaky bucket, and the value of them. We go back to Amanda's in her hair. If they get one haircut from you, they're going to get 11 others for that year. So it's just incredible. You don't want to lose those people, or you want to slow that loss. This is another one. So this is, you hear like 80-20 rule. So it's really 70-30. So this is a mathematical, it's called negative binomial distribution. You don't care about that, but it is, you see this a lot in AI now. This is the math behind a lot of the AI, how people choose. So in this case, this is what we would expect the market share to be. So it's called order of entry in this chart. It's a little technical. So let's say there's 10 pizza restaurants. The 10th one will only have a 4 share. So if you're starting a new business, like why are you opening another pizza place? You're going to be small to start with. In this case, 7 or 8 times smaller than the market leader, for example, a 30 share. How do you're going to have to really overspend to get share of voice, to really get share of loyalty from them. So consider that even for new products or new focus. So it's really important that you have a focus in terms of not being a me too. So me too is just the odds are stacked against you. So if you're rolling out a new product or service, you want to be the first one. It's just going to be higher response. People are going to attract you and stay with you. In this case, the 10th pizza place, or you could be the second Italian place, changing your frame of reference or what have you, could be a bigger idea than just coming out with another pizza place. So this is really important too. Again, these are odds, so odds stacked against you of where you enter a market or have a new product or new service or what have you. So again, playing the odds, understanding your competition and where they are, and then what you really add to the market. If you're the 10th pizza place, you're not going to really add a lot. to the market because there's a lot of people like you and it's going to be a price game. And you really have to overspend on advertising, much bigger, 8 and 9 times bigger than what the big person does. So this is another way. And you also see consolidation of markets. I was talking to like a HVAC guy who's now into plumbing and electrical. They're getting backed by investment money, venture money, being bought out, and they're trying to do a subscription, and they're going to cover a lot of service areas, not just heating and air conditioning. They're going to be a one-stop shop, and you got to make an appointment. And if you're in their club, you get first priority for an emergency and stuff like that. So even in these types of businesses, small businesses, you're seeing some consolidation on this because they're trying to shrink the odds. If they're the 10th HVAC person, they're going to be really hard to be competitive. But if they combine all those services and they'd be a one-stop shop, they're going to be 1 or 2 people and they're going to be worth a lot more. So consider that in your product offerings as well. Is there something bigger that, it would help you fight these odds? So we talked about this before. Again, this is probably out of the flow of this, but just so you know that everything we talked about, a marketing activity leads to a marketing outcome, and that drives cash flow, and cash flow is about your brand capitalization. So when you go to sell a business or you're trying to get a loan or something like that, you see, what is the value of my business? Is 3 times sales, 4 times sales, 5 times sales. You see this in software companies. The tech companies and the startup because none of these have made a profit yet. And it takes like 10 years. Like Amazon made their first profit like 4 years ago. But their value and cash flow is so much higher. And that's, drives their stock price and everything else, the financial value of your business. So this is from the Marketing Accountability Standards Board. This is a bunch of academics and people like myself, practitioners that get together. This is what also what the best practices in accounting groups and the Advertising Research Foundation. There's all these people and said, how do we, focus on this in terms of evaluating our brands and whatnot? And you can do the same as well. What is the value of your marketing outcomes? If you follow what I just talked about, is what's the value of ROI and driving that into the future and refilling that bucket? That's worth a lot more than being the 10th pizza player, for example. So really focus on that financially. You don't have to get into the balance sheet stuff because that will scare some of your folks. But understand financially, this is now being accepted marketing activity. Marketing activity is the factories of the 50s and 60s, a hard asset. The value of your brand now is worth something much, much bigger. You can't look any further than Amazon or, Walmart was always mad because they have brick and mortar stores and why, we're much bigger than Amazon. We sell more. Well, until you started Walmart.com, Amazon was worth more because of this, their focus on driving a lot more cash flow and, valuation to their business through marketing. And Amazon had at that time, very few, even warehouses and stuff. They've added a lot now. They bought, food business. They bought food business because it's a big part of the economy and, the data that they could get from it. We're not good food operators and they're closing a bunch of stores now, but they captured all that customer data versus a brick and mortar part of that asset. So it's interesting how different companies look at the ROIs of their business. This is for our other clients, so this is kind of the best practice. So track the entire path to purchase. So pre-store or pre-bar or restaurant, be active with them with social media. Social media has its pluses and minuses. There's always the negative that comes with that. So try to control that. I'm not a social media expert. I know Robin is or other folks in the chamber. But really focus on creating that awareness, creating events through social media, staying involved in that is free. It's a little bit of your time. But that's the pre-store, pre-buy part of that. Also drive people to your, like, example, a restaurant or location, get them physically involved with your business. Every touch point, like I said, through Google Analytics or Facebook, their analytics, you have some kind of data, you understand if you've driven business or not. Sure, try to put those together. There's retailer media and shopper marketing. This Walmart now is all digital now. They have their own retailer network. They consider themselves a media, so they've even changed and become a media company in their folks. Kroger too as well. Not that any of us could do that, but that's how they're changing their business model. Instead of complaining about Amazon as they were 10 years ago, not making a profit, now they've kind of copied Amazon. Um, there's attribution, so link it to a sale, not just a click or engagement or comment. Comment leads to a sale or engagement. It also leads to word of mouth or word of share of share of mind, or sending it to a friend. All important. So look for engagement in that. We'll get into this, but some of this other stuff is just stay involved with and use the data that is actively available to you. Every day in media performance. So media performance, we talked about this earlier. A good example of this is Apple. So Apple's continuously using their AI to optimize their media, but they're also tracking if they drive incremental sales. So they figure if they optimize upfront through their media activation, they will drive sales, but they also know that there's a lot going on. So they measure those separately, not in one place. So again, this is cause and effect. You buy, and then you sell something. So even the big companies, they get confused by this, and it really gets, Rob and I were talking beforehand, it gets really confusing with all this data and all this stuff coming to, if you separate in these two boxes, you'll understand really what's driving your business, what's worth my time, time is money too, even though it's free, maybe in some cases, but it's also your time, getting people into your stores or bank or buying your service, it should be thought of in that. Similar thing is the full marketing funnel. I don't know if you're familiar with this. So this is how you refill. So you attract people, you're creating awareness. So that's the goal maybe of your marketing objective for this vehicle. You want to drive a conversion of something, whether it's in the aisle, or you want people to attend your event through a band. You're creating something, and when they're at that event, that's one thing. That's a marketing spend. So if you hire a band to play, that's a marketing cost, but you want them to purchase. You want them to get engaged. You're buying drinks. You're bringing people in with you, a bigger party. And then you're retaining them. So, do you have a customer list if you're on your own bar, and you can keep people involved in that? So when they're there, ask for an email and, hit them up to come back. So, you fill that leaky bucket, right? They just don't go away to another bar. And advocacy connects. So, like we have done with the Fiesta Days or through the Wine Walk, you're an advocate, you're staying connected, you're meeting people, you're getting out there. So this is the marketing funnel, and each of these have different marketing objectives, but really in the end, it's to drive that number 3, which is really that incremental purchase of something that you offer. Granularly, so I'm not going to get into this, but if you're like a food company, it's not just a Kroger, it's a store Kroger. So you may execute things different, like a sample at Costco differently. So measure at the lowest level that you can. In this case, y'all own a store, so you're really focused on that. But for a big company who spends money kind of in a mass way, it really is important that they focus on the ROI. This was something I sat on with Circana or IRI. It was like the ROIs are 100% more if you measure versus kind of throwing it together in a blender with advertising and TV advertising and everything else. So, measure at the level you execute, I guess, is the key one for this group. So with that, I think we're at the end here. I have 5 minutes. So is there any questions or comments?
Phil, do you want to unshare the screen for a
Yep.
sec so that if anybody wants to um,
Okay, it says it stopped.
okay. And that was fantastic. It's a lot of information, but
Yeah.
it was good. I think it at least for me gave me some insight into some things maybe I wasn't paying attention to. And even if I didn't understand the nitty gritty, it
Mhm.
was some awareness about something I should be paying more attention to.
I will send out a PDF of this, Robin, so if you could send it to folks,
Sure.
because then they can do the math or replicate it. Again, is to make it easy. The stuff we do is, using a lot more complicated. So just so you know that you can still do it. So don't be afraid. I think that's what I want to try to get across is that you can use this, a marketing dollar is precious. You should spend it on the right things and get the right return. So that creates more dollars to spend back and grow your business.
If someone's been DIYing their marketing this whole time, let's say, and they want to kind of dip their toe into this, other than hiring you, which we'll talk about next,
Uh,
but what would be kind of a good first start as far as kind of looking at that data?
I think it also, because we're talking about sales, so everyone has their own sales. They know also their marketing, so audience reach or impressions or something like that. So you're buying an audience. So just putting those two together in an Excel spreadsheet, and I can teach them how to do it. There's Excel add-ons that are free to do like correlations or regressions if you really want to get geeky. But just putting those two together and see how they relate. Do I get a bump? That one chart is like laying it out by week. What do I see? I have a band every month. Well, maybe I shouldn't do that, for example, at a bar. Maybe I should really focus up on events on these key weeks. Or what's the goal of that band? Maybe it's, a slow period and I want to get people in there. That's okay too. But just understand that it's the return is going to be higher in February in that case than maybe in November. People are just out. They're not going to be available. So I think that's a good way to chart it. I think, hopefully everyone has Excel, but um, just visualizing data and just, this week, something cause and effect, something happened. This looks like it's the best week, and understanding kind of your business in that regard. You have an audience data, like you know how many clicks or how many impressions. Usually, if you do Facebook and stay involved and see what people are responding to, but then try different messages. What are, you can see online and kind of testing control. It's called A/B testing, which is just testing control is pre-post. Are people reacting to that? But just take uh, uh, a numbers view to it versus kind of, people reacted. Well, people react, in what way, and I'm putting it in a number.
Okay. And you and I talked a little before too about is any of this leading to sales? And if you run a Facebook ad and it shows, oh my gosh, I got all these additional hits to my website, but if no one's buying, there's a gap somewhere. Something's
Mhm.
not aligning.
The thing with social media is you have a free laboratory, right? So I may not get an additional sale from this because it's, I have much bigger businesses. Maybe I'll get something. I'm glad to help out too for some goodwill. But maybe the YouTube that's picked up. I have some friends. I don't think they joined. They said it was gonna be a liquid lunch and learn. They were gonna come on and heckle me, but it's a chance too to get my name out there. Some folks posted this on LinkedIn, and I can do something afterwards. So the goal is, I don't, um, you know, this was not to be a commercial, it was to kind of share it, but it just for the group here, just putting data together and trying to understand it and visualize it can really give you an understanding of what people are reacting to, your customers in specific. I think most
Great.
people struggle with pricing, especially with inflation. But there's more creative ways that you can do a price increase, like I talked about, that actually adds value to many of your consumers. So be creative with it. That would be my advice.
Does anyone have any questions before we sign off for today? You can go ahead and just unmute and ask your question if you have one.
I just wanted to say thank you, Phil, for, doing this because I know that it's not always easy, and especially in a virtual world that can cause some headaches. So thank you for doing this.
Yeah, well, thank you everyone for attending. And again, if you have any questions, my email's there. I'll be glad to help.
Do you want to
Um,
repeat that for us, Phil, where we can find you?
yeah, just lardner.philip@outlook.com.
Okay. And I believe in the email you all got with the Zoom link, it should also have where you can connect to Phil on LinkedIn as well as the link. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Great,
This
thank
has
you.
been recorded, so this will go on to our McHenry Chamber YouTube channel. If any of you want to go back and relook at things and kind of take your time sorting through it, it will be on our YouTube channel. Thank you so much, Phil.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great
Okay.
day. The sun's out
Everybody have a good day. Yeah. All
now.
right. Bye,
Okay, bye.
everybody.
Bye.